We don't tend to talk about positive energy in English language discourse so much as positive psychology. In China, this term positive energy, zheng nengliang, has become very prominent. So why am I talking about positive energy, zheng nengliang? Well, since 2012, it's become very prominent in popular and political discourse. In 2012, it was the 14th hottest internet expression, according to a particular poll. What's its connection with happiness? Well, as we heard from Gerda, it's said that positive energy can make you happy. Now, why am I researching it? What's the aim of my research? Is just to find out more about the kinds of happy subjects that positive energy is said to produce. What kinds of happiness is found in people through positive energy. How have I studied it? Well, I've looked at popular internet encyclopedias and news websites, and I've also looked at, as I said, some public service adverts. They're also known as public service announcements, PSAs, on Beijing's public transport system. So more about that later. What is a public service advert? This is the bit I've stolen from your paper, Giovanna. It's a non-commercial message with a socio-cultural dimension in the public interest. It, according to some scholars, particularly in China, has a political and ideological function. And these PSAs are increasingly artistic and creative with some kind of emotional appeal. How do we define zheng nengliang, or how is zheng nengliang defined in the Chinese popular discourse? Well, according to Baidu Baike, the online encyclopedia, the most prominent online encyclopedia, this is a definition, or one definition. Currently, Chinese people stick the zheng nengliang label on all positive, healthy, endeavor-encouraging, power-bestowing, hope-filled people and things. And it's already risen to become full of symbolic meaning, deeply intertwined with our feelings, expressing our hopes and expectations. So a lot of emotional aspects to it, the definition. How is it characterized generally in the internet discourse? Well, often it is summed up as acting happy will make you happy. Wear a smile on your face and you will begin to feel happy. And in fact, this was a message that was promoted by a book called Rip It Up by Richard Wiseman, who's a British pop psychology guru, which was translated into Chinese in 2012 and given the title zheng nengliang. So that's very different from the English title, Rip It Up. But the essence of that book is, and drawing on William James's ideas from the 1880s, that acting happy will make you happy. Rather than starting in the brain and thinking yourself happy, you adopt this sort of physical, you embody happiness, as it were. There are also another dimension to its characterization in China is through this idea of magnetic energy fields. That there is in physics, you know, they've found these huge energy fields. This is where I begin to get out of my depth, rather. According to the scientific laws of the universe, there are lots of energy fields around, some of them positive. And then this, in terms of folk science, this becomes a sort of idea of whatever you want from the universe will give you. You just need to kind of align yourself with it. And this is a kind of holistic view. If you put all this together, the embodied happiness and the kind of universe ideas of happiness, then you get this kind of holistic view of happiness. So to expand a bit more on that, positive thinking, which is more prominent in the West, positions the psyche as the foundation to happiness, whereas positive energy emphasizes a dynamic interplay between the spiritual and the material, the individual and the universal. And you get this kind of correlation of cosmological forces, that's the universe, with the energized bodies. And there's clearly scope here for bringing in ideas of the Tao and the Qi, and they do appear in contemporary characterizations of zheng nengliang. Now, this is linked. This kind of linking of the universal and the individual is something that's becoming much more prominent in China in the post-Mao era, and it's been written about academically, specifically or particularly concerning the notion of qi. So let's just read this quote. In contrast to present-day medical discourses that identify qi as a mere bodily substance, that's really what happened in the Mao era. This Nancy Chen is saying, drawing on Judith Farquhar's ideas, that in the Mao era there was a kind of focus on the more material body circulation of qi. Nowadays, in the post-Mao era, many contemporary practitioners and popular qigong manuals have defined qi as a form of energy or universal force present in the environment and the atmosphere, so it's wider, as well as a bodily force. So you get this kind of subscription to earlier, more traditional notions of qi in which individuals draw upon or embody the transformative powers of qi present in an environment. So it's not, qi is not just something that circulates in the body, it's something that's in the environment as a whole, and this harks back to pre-modern ideas. So the body is a microcosm of the universe. This came up in London, this is an example, London Olympic time, internet memes. You got idea that these very powerful, pervasive memes in the Chinese language internet, ignite zheng nengliang, detonate a small universe. If you ignite zheng nengliang, your luck won't be blocked. Where do these ideas come from? They come from a Japanese anime manga series from the 1980s that had the slogan, "Burn my small universe and small universe explode." And this idea is about everybody within their body has got a kind of little cosmos that if they just know how to detonate it, then they can radiate success and happiness and well-being. Now, political discourse. Xi Jinping, otherwise known as Xi Dada, Big Daddy Xi, spreads zheng nengliang. So this is also something that Gerda alluded to. December 2012, Xi calls for China and the US to bring zheng nengliang into building their relationship. I don't know if it was taken up. January 2013, the propaganda office in Beijing advocates more zheng nengliang. November 2013, Xi wants it spread over the internet, people writing on the no, that's not the internet one. That's implementing reforms aimed at achieving a moderately well-off society. Here's the internet one. October 2014, Xi calls on online authors to use zheng nengliang. September 2015, not officially reported, but according to many microblogs, in the speech at the military parade to commemorate the end of the Second World War, Xi associated zheng nengliang with the Buddhist notion of right mindfulness. And state media campaigns generally have linked zheng nengliang to citizenship values such as patriotism, dedication to one's work, etc., which are said to be the basis of the strength and the happiness of the nation. So we can see how zheng nengliang is woven into political discourse there. Now, onto my particular examples of zheng nengliang in public service announcements. So those of you who have been to Beijing, probably familiar with this kind of site, the handgrips hanging down from the rails in the underground carriages. I'm calling it subway here for Will, since he's American, right? And zheng nengliang on subway handgrips. So when I was in China, in Beijing in 2013, I think it was, I noticed that there were quite a few handgrips with this zheng nengliang slogan on. And here we have one of them, Meitian zheng nengliang. So this is, I'm going to talk about 3 hand grips. On one side of each of the 3 hand grips, there was this slogan, and that means zheng nengliang every day, positive energy every day. On the first hand grip, we've got, on the other side, we have this, which is a white cloud with a blue sky surrounding it, and a nice calligraphic title. And in English, this reads, live a bit more gracefully, that's the title. Perhaps your life is not at all prosperous. Perhaps your work is far from good enough. Perhaps right now you're in a difficult position. Whatever the reason, when you walk out of your house, please make sure you wear a smile on your face. And face life with a calm and composed manner. As long as you genuinely keep this up, no matter what, other people will not be able to wear you down. So this wearing a smile is an interesting bodily response to making oneself happy in unhappy situations. Hand grip 2, we've got a green grass. This is a bit like the Microsoft, famous Microsoft desktop image, isn't it? Yes, I think maybe deliberately. So we've got the green grass here, blue sky. Look at the lovely hot air balloons, rainbow, wind turbines, a dream for clean air and clean energy, our aspiration towards it. Now, what does this, and lovely calligraphy again at the top, sort of wispy clouds. Optimism is an attitude. Don't tire yourself out. Don't get so busy that you exhaust yourself. When you feel vexed, find a friend and meet up. When you feel like sleeping, just topple over. I was thinking, as if, right? And go to sleep, right? So if I see any of you toppling over, I'll know you're just taking this advice. A placid mind is always the most beautiful. One should be happy, and the word there that was used was kwaila, every day. So quite physical, again, sort of embodied reactions to making oneself happy. Find a friend, social intercourse, and toppling over, of course, going to sleep. That's very physical, bodily response. Handgrip 3. It's nice to have a bit of a change. We've got a lovely sunflower here and a warm, cozy, autumnal, well, sort of sunny feeling anyway. Hello, happy times. So I've been a bit contrived in the translation here. The actual term is meihao. And if you look at dictionaries, there are many ways of translating meihao, one of which is happy. So whether we can at least agree that meihao in Chinese, if we're translating it, it involves some kind of happiness to it. From today onwards, be a simple person. Be practical and pragmatic. Don't indulge in fantasies, huanxiang, and don't worry about imaginary troubles. You should be happy, kuai cheerful, kailang, tenacious, warm, sincere, calm, generous, broad-minded. Be full of hope. Face difficult situations, hardships with a smile. There's that smile again. And you should have dreams, mengxiang. Even if distant ones. So huanxiang are out, and mengxiang are in. What's the difference? I'm not sure. Again, there's a very sort of embodied way of looking at this. The smile, being practical and pragmatic, is not involving thinking. Being simple is not involving it. Is a kind of a calmness, a kind of generous sense of giving. These are kind of sort of, in some sense, affective and bodily responses. So what are the main themes? Symbolic messages. I'm drawing a little bit on Bart here in my dividing this into symbolic message and linguistic message, very simplified. Blue skies convey a sense of timeless calm, relaxation, freedom from worries, and clarity of thought. The hearts that I didn't point out, but there are little hearts you might have seen in the designs, connote love and tenderness. The calligraphy and the emphasis on nature draw the reader towards enduring cosmologies and self-cultivation practices that emphasize holistic harmony between person and environment. So what I mean by that is that the calligraphy it has a connotation of, in some sense, of getting oneself into the zone where you're producing a kind of beautiful calligraphy without over-intellectualizing it. That's the essence, the whole kind of Taoist idea behind the yin and the yang that you're producing when you do calligraphy, and a Confucian tradition, of course, of self-cultivation that's there. The emphasis on nature, if you think about that, for example, the sunflower, there's the idea that the sunflower turns towards the sun, it seeks warmth. So it's a kind of idea of alignment with natural rhythms, that a person should just turn towards positive energy and warmth. So so there is a kind of holistic dimension, I argue, to these pictures. Linguistic message: the individual is responsible for and capable of managing her emotions, and happiness is a normative emotional state. You should be happy all the time, which individuals should nurture within themselves through bodily and psychological self-management. I'm not saying there isn't psychological self-management, I'm saying there's bodily as well. But it's very much an individualized response to happiness. Now, my final example is a PSA on a Beijing bus stop ad. So those of you who've been in Beijing, if you imagine a road here, and then here's the bus stop, and they have these ads, and quite often there's quite a bit of pavement behind, and so I've got the ad that I'm talking about was on the reverse side, if you can imagine, of a bus stop like this, where a lot of people walking by or waiting for a bus would have seen it. And here it is, and we've got the slogan, which I'll show you the English in a minute, and my camera wasn't wide enough to capture it. Oh, so there's a couple of dancing figures there with, notice the sort of electrical lightning things there and the sort of electrocardiograph things. Very different sort of look to it. The characters are in a different kind of form as well. The text says, offer compassion, transmit zheng nengliang, respect and courtesy make our city happier. So very pithy, very direct, and quite unlike the subway messages on the handgrip. The main themes here, you have electrical pulse signs, the cross symbol on the heart of the jumping figures, allude to the positive energy charges in magnetic energy fields in physics. So I think there's a real connection with this whole idea of the magnetic energy field. The leaping human figures evoke vitality and happiness achieved together with other people, and the hearts link zheng nengliang with compassionate, empathetic relations between humans. What's the linguistic message here? Quite different, though, from the subway. In interactions with others, the reader must control her attitude, be respectful, be courteous, and behavior as prescribed. Because, you know, the implication is you are potentially an unruly person who needs to control their attitude to make the city a happier place. Let's compare the two ads. What kind of subject, what kind of person is being addressed? The white-collar subway commuter, I argue, is being constructed as a self-regulating and thoughtful individual with feelings, a postmodern subject, if you like, capable of drawing from eclectic traditions of diverse origins to better manage her emotions, you know, from positive psychology, from Confucian Taoism, this kind of stuff, very eclectic. The working class bus passenger, okay, that's a bit of an oversimplification, but just generally, potentially thoughtless, unruly, in need of firm top-down moral directives, you know, be respectful, be courteous, a not yet modern enough citizen who needs to be taught appropriate manners for a developed society. So what I'm arguing is that these posters speak, these PSAs, speak to different kinds of subjects. What behavioral aims do the ads convey? The subway ads suggest ways for white-collar professionals to stay sane and serviceable for their employees. Just the point that was made at the back in the Q&A for Gerda is that we're all being trained up now to be happy so that we can keep working for the bosses. The bus stop ad endeavors to effect a society-wide improvement in civility between citizens. That's a very different thing from the behavioral aims of the subway ad. So what I'm arguing is that there's a kind of middle-class emotional habitus, emotional intelligence that's being constructed through the subway ads. Eva Luce has written about this idea of emotional intelligence in the middle class. She says today's middle classes, whose professions demand a careful management of the self, developed an emotional habitus, sorry, that's a jargon word, just a sort of way of being, an emotional intelligence that privileges them in the economic marketplace and better equips them to achieve what is currently considered to represent well-being and happiness. So if you're emotionally intelligent, like the person who's addressed by the subway ads, then you can have better social connections and you come across as a more cultured person. That's what the middle class are always trying to do, to distinguish themselves from the working classes, or the blue collar, if you want to call them that in China. So Yang Jie has written very much about the psychologization, written very well about the psychologization of how happiness is brought into psychologizing people in China through TV programs and so on to create what Yang Jie has termed fake happiness practices. And I'm arguing here that this is a specific example of that with the middle class. The middle class are being trained up on the middle class commuter, the white-collar commuter on the subway is being trained up to perform a kind of fake happiness. It's a very individualized response to the setbacks in that person's life, and it's for the sake of China's economic development and social and political stabilization. These practices help to promote then and effect a model of successful middle-class emotional subjectivity combining grace, sensitivity, warmth, placidity of mind, which reflects and instills a sophisticated mode of emotional self-governance, which the middle class is... Right, time's up. I'm almost finished. Conclusion. So, zheng nengliang shows the influence of multiple traditions, which I've already gone through, and I don't have time to go through them again. And my main argument would be this assemblage of elements fuses the idea of the self-governing neoliberal self, neoliberal in brackets because it's a contentious term, with an embodied and holistic worldview that does not focus exclusively on the psyche and this is just a repetition of what I've already said. I would just argue here that the different ways in which the subway posters and the bus stop ads speak suggest a kind of process, how they operate within process of social stratification as they speak to and help shape differently classed subjects. And I think my last slide is what now, and does this really matter? Much research remains to be done on looking at zheng, nengliang. I think we're just at the beginning of that. But we need to find out how governments are trying to shape people, not just governments, companies, universities, are trying to shape their employees and people generally in how people think, act, and understand themselves. So I'll leave it there.